Hey, Science Seekers, this is Mr. Pfeiffer. We are here to celebrate and learn more about science and history. Today, we are going to have a history fair project from one of our Mead Made Magnet students. We have Nitsa, Lila, and Nandini who created this amazing product. It's all about Jonas Salk and the polio vaccine. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Science Seeker Show and a history fair special.
Turning points in history. From exploring new territory to flying contraptions to the termination of slavery, turning points have always been a vital part of our world history. These frontiers shaped our world into what it is today because of some brilliant minds and compelling opinions. One invention in particular caused the most important advancement towards eradicating a disease that plagued society for almost a century. The crucial solution that brought an end to this was a game changer for families all across America. This defining event was the creation of the polio vaccine. The inactivated polio vaccine, or IPV, was created by Jonas Salk in 1955. The implementation and creation of the vaccine proved to be a turning point in history, as it changed the way we approached infectious disease. It had a great societal impact, as many people were receptive towards it, and the vaccine was a turning point in medical advancement due to its ability to ward off polio by immunizing the human body. Let's travel back in time for a moment. The year is 1916, and the first U.S. outbreak of polio has just struck the lives of the American people. Parents may have heard some news from outside sources, but for the most part, few had a grasp on this strange, incurable disease. They didn't know what was happening to their children and family members, but saw that they lost their mobility and all adeptness to function within their lives. People had no idea what was going on, how the disease was spread, or how to prevent it. As a result, due to the contagious nature of the virus, it was transmitted at an alarming rate, irrespective of age. Slowly, as scientists and researchers continued to study the disease, more information was available on the vaccine. Poliomyelitis, more commonly known as polio, is a disease that infects the spine and spreads to other parts of the body, eventually crippling one's limbs. This disease was common in infants and young children. Most importantly, it was incurable and fatal in many cases. Noted author Pascuala Herrera wrote in her book, "Due to my illness, she had to establish a different routine. She was disappointed to see I had not moved all night. The only solution she found was to drop milk in my mouth with a spoon. She noticed that I had moved my right pinky finger. To her, this movement was as if I had won a gold medal in the Olympics." A few inventions like the iron lung had come along to try to make polio more bearable. The iron lung was a bulky, large cylinder that patients were placed in to help stimulate artificial breathing. However, this treatment was very confining. Only the patient's head stuck out from this machine, and it was in a very tight and enclosed space. Some people used parallel bars to help relearn how to walk. However, all of these treatments had something in common. None of them could prevent polio or cure it. Continuing on this path, polio kept infecting people. The peak outbreak was in 1952 with about 57,000 cases of paralytic poliomyelitis in the United States. In these dark times, Jonas Salk and his research provided a beacon of hope. He built off of the work of his peers and created a vaccine for poliomyelitis. Jonas Salk had an innovative mind and was always willing to help people. Salk had a passion for medicine. He married a fellow doctor, Donna Lindsay, and had 2 sons. Salk also helped Dr. Thomas Francis Jr. with an influenza vaccine by testing on lab mice. Francis later helped contribute to the development of the polio vaccine. Salk's concern for people and his own children led to his work on the polio vaccine, and the fact that he put so much work and effort into developing it. By conducting this research, he was offered a larger working space. There were also several moral reasons for assisting with the development of the vaccine, as he would finally get to see his family safe and would be building a better future for Americans. After developing a vaccine, Salk tested it on himself and his family on May 16, 1953. He conducted a massive polio trial, in which over 1.3 million children participated, which started on April 24, 1954. The children were assigned to two groups, the trial group and the vaccine group. A smaller control group received no injections. Neither the children or their families knew which received the vaccine and which received the placebo fluid. It took almost a year to analyze and find out if the vaccine actually prevented polio. After working on the prototype and completing the trials, the vaccine was finally ready to be administered to the public in 1955. This new inactivated polio vaccine was administered as an injection and was made of dead polio cells. The topic of patenting his vaccine came up to Jonas Salk, and he ultimately decided not to patent it. When asked who owned the patent,
Who owns the patent on this vaccine?
he responded with,
The people, I would say. There is no patent. Could you patent the sun?
This inspired many people across America, and as a result of this choice, the vaccine could be more broadly used, and people could build off of his invention, much like he had built off of the work of others. All in all, society was content to see this new invention be enacted into their lives. Everything was going smoothly, and there were many additional improvements to the vaccine by different scientists. Eventually, a new form of the vaccine was introduced to the public by Albert Sabin, known as the oral polio vaccine. This vaccine was supposedly more efficient than the other and was administered orally instead of via injection. OPV was made with a weaker live version of poliomyelitis compared to IPV, which was made with dead polio cells. The vaccine was useful as people didn't have to be injected in order to receive it and could simply consume it on a sugar cube. OPV started being used in 1960 outside of the US, and its use soon spread to the Americas. It became the polio vaccine recommended by healthcare officials in the USA. The public reacted surprisingly well to the oral polio vaccine, and there wasn't much protest. Even before it was introduced, parents were delighted to know that there would be another vaccine.
I think it was very positive based on what I remember. It was in the 60s and we kind of just did what the government told us to do at the time.
Most seemed to be taking it very well.
Just kind of one of those things where the teachers line up and you just kind of followed along with everyone else, and we went into the auditorium and that was it.
Ultimately, Salk's vaccine saved many people's lives. It prevented them from contracting the disease and averted the circumstance of having to cure polio. IPV was a major advancement in the medical field and assisted greatly in the eradication of polio from the United States. In 1994, polio was declared wiped out from the Americas. Graphs and data display the amount of poliomyelitis and paralysis cases and polio fatalities before and after the introduction of the vaccine. The number of cases after the vaccine were significantly decreased, proving how effective IPV was. After 2000, IPV was reinstated as the main form of vaccination for children and adults, as it was considered more useful and effective. OPV was still helpful, but a modified version of the vaccine, made by Salk, was reestablished and put in use, because it was more accurate and functional than OPV. In 2019, another pandemic struck, COVID-19. It spread around the world, and the World Health Organization declared it as a global pandemic. The whole world shut down in fear of this inexplicable disease, which spread rapidly with fatal consequences. Many were reminded again of the poliomyelitis epidemic, and around the world, medical professionals and pharmaceutical companies raced against time to prevent or contain this killer virus. By December of 2020, barely a year after its outbreak, a vaccine was developed for coronavirus. Advances in technology, global collaboration, and communication led to a more rapid development of COVID vaccines. Unlike during poliomyelitis, when technology was not as advanced. However, Jonas Salk's vaccine was able to set a precedent for future vaccine developers and helped American scientists produce a vaccine quickly and effectively. As is evident from the data, societal impacts, and effects of the inactivated polio vaccine, Jonas Salk's vaccine truly paved the way for modern-day treatments and developed the most important solution in saving America from polio. In the United States at the time, there were a lot of other attempts at solutions, But the IPV vaccine truly was the ultimate idea. The vaccine improved the health of the people in America and gave them light in a time of darkness.